do potentially a lot of healing because you're gonna blink in, heal, 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 heal. I'm not even cheating recharge right now, and you can see like pretty decent. Obviously, no one in the real world is just gonna spam blink in, blink out, blink in, blink out, blink out, blink out, because that's not super realistic.
And I took that personally. Hi, everybody. Oh, hello, sir. Sir, don't mind. I'm trying to shoot a video here. That was rude. Didn't see the camera, I guess. Anyway. Yeah, hi, everybody. So yeah, I made a Specter build, and I wanted to show it off to you guys because recently Specter just got a huge nerf to their shroud, and everybody's very upset on the forums. And you know, it does hurt for sure, but it didn't really hurt the build that I made a week or two ago. And so I wanted to share with you all so that people could stop being upset for a little bit, but also maybe be upset with me because it's a silly build and you might not like it. Yeah, so from that intro, you probably got a clue as to what's going on here. I wanted to try to make it was a challenge to me. Essentially CMC saying that in the Specter reveal trailer. I finally got around to trying out Specter for the first time a couple of weeks ago, more than just a little tiny bit, and yeah, so I had to do the unrealistic thing and try to make it work, because that's what I do, right? So yeah. It's a Specter build that teleports nonstop. And what does it do? Well, it actually does a lot. How do you make it work? Okay, there's a lot of reasons why CMC said it was unrealistic to just teleport in and out. One of the reasons it's unrealistic is not something that I addressed in this build because it just is a fact. And that is, if you're trying to teleport in and out all the time as part of your build, you're gonna hurt yourself positionally, and you might not be able to do a lot of interesting things like heal people that are far away from a bad guy, or do other stuff. You know. Anyway, the point is, positionally teleporting in and out to a bad guy is not necessarily very good tactically for any kind of boss fight necessarily, unless it's just a tank and spank. That doesn't really, there's ways to get around it a little bit with this build, but no, that's the case. But you know what it does do? Another reason why it's unrealistic to just do that is because if you're just doing that, you're not doing anything else. And yeah, you might be healing people a little bit, but that doesn't help, right? Because people aren't going to be hurting all the time. So topping people off like that doesn't actually do anything. You're not doing any damage. You're not giving people any buffs. It's bad. It's not great. So I had to work around that and make it work. And how do you do that? Well, Specter does a few cool things. Let's look at the traits for a second. Okay. So Specter's got Rottweiler venom. You can't put it on yourself, so that's a shame. But you can put it on other people. And you actually do a little bit of damage from that, right? Like, one stack of Rottweiler venom does about 300 damage without like buffs and stuff like that. So that means every 1 second you do 300 damage. That's not very much. That's 300 DPS. That's very low. But what's cool is that this actually affects more than one character if you apply it at the same time. So like it's 1 second internal cooldown per character. So you can affect 5 people with it if you do AoE barrier, which is possible. You get AoE barrier from a few things. But the way I do it is I give AoE barrier when I shade step, when I teleport. So this says, Siphon now grants you barrier when targeting enemies and revives allies when targeting them. Shadow stepping breaks your barrier and gives it to nearby allies proportional to the number of allies affected. So if you have barrier and you shade step, you give that barrier to allies around you, and it goes away from you. So they'll all get Rottweiler venom. Pretty good, right? But that's only good, well, I mean, obviously the revive thing is also kind of cool, but that's only good if you have barrier. So how do I get barrier? Well, let's see. When I shade step, when I shadow step, with this trait, I give myself a little bit of healing, give everybody around me a little bit of healing as well, which is actually kind of nice. Also, my wells give alacrity. So that's another thing this build does, permanent alacrity. And then with the shadow arts, I took the other trait that whenever you shadow step, you heal allies. So that's another healing, even more than this one. And that affects 5 targets as well. That's a little bit bigger radius. That's 360 radius. These are both actually 360 radius, which is quite nice. And then, so yeah, that's healing whenever I shadow step. And then I took Sanctuary Runes. Sanctuary Runes, which give barrier to myself equal to 10% of any health or healing I receive. So every time I shade step, I'm healing myself at the same time and giving myself barrier and then giving away that barrier to other people, therefore giving them the Rottweiler venom. So every time I shadow step now, instead of just healing someone or healing 5 people around me, is also giving Rottweiler venom to everybody around me 100% of the time. So with just shadow stepping, bonk, 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 not doing anything else with my 5 targets, you do about 5,000 DPS to a single target because of it. That's crazy, huh? So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. The other good thing is, yeah, so you're healing every time you do that. So the amount of healing you do is kind of insane. I know this trait here, Consume Shadows, got nerfed hard because your shadow shroud is so small now. So before the nerf, when I was in a big, fight with, boss fight, doing the metas or something like that, in a big group of people, if you're spamming this guy and also going in and out of Shadow Shroud with full Shadow Shroud, before the nerf, about 15% of your healing came from the Shadow Shroud, and 60% of your healing came from shadow stepping. Or was it? No, it was like 50% of your healing came from... No, it was 60%. 60% of your healing came from shadow stepping, and then another certain percent of your healing came from the Well of Gloom. So the shadow stepping is an insane amount of healing, just spamming it. And now, with the Rottweiler Venom and the Sanctuary Rune combo, you are also doing damage at the same time as you're doing your shadow stepping. On top of that, you're going to be doing extra damage with the Spider Venom, giving that to people. You're going to be giving permanent alacrity and doing some damage with this. You're going to be doing about 50% uptime of stability, some might, and stuff like that. So you could do a little less healing and then go Trickery instead and get Thrill of the Crime and Bountiful Theft and Deadly Ambush or Sleight of Hand. And you'll be giving people like Permanent Fury and a decent uptime of about 12 to 18 might. And then Vigor as well. Permanent uptime of Vigor. But I think it's not a great idea to do this because I'll tell you why. Because when you are... So Sanctuary Runes are an interesting thing. Sanctuary Runes gives you barrier whenever you get healing, but when you're topped off at full health, it's pretty random, it seems, what things that heal you will count as still healing you when you're at full health and give you barrier for it. So this trait, for example, Traversing Dusk, if I'm at full health and I'm shadow stepping, I don't actually get any barrier when I'm at full health because this healing doesn't consider myself as getting healed if I'm already at full health. However, this one, Shadow Savior, does. It does consider you as still getting healed when you're at full health, and so you will get barrier even if you are at full health, and so you will still be pushing out that Rottweiler Venom every time you shadow step. So that's why I think Shadow Arts is kind of necessary with the Shadow Savior to give yourself all that extra healing as well. Yeah, so it's kind of fun. So the funny thing about this build, so if you're in a big group, a zerg of people doing the metas, you could pump out 10k DPS, 13k DPS with like instead. I'm using celestial gear, but if instead in celestial gear you could use what's it called, Ritualist, and it does a little bit more damage, so you get up to like 13k DPS like that. A little bit less healing. It doesn't go down that much because this goes down to like 650 ally healing, and this goes down to like 620 ally healing or something with no healing power, or 600. I forget. Maybe they're both 600. Anyway, so that the diminishing your healing power doesn't affect your healing that much. So you could just go Ritualist gear instead of Celestial. I like Celestial though. I don't know why. But yeah, so you could do 10k, 13k DPS in like a meta event like that. If you're roaming on your own, if you're just going around PvE by your lonesome, you do no damage. You do damage from spider venom and like your well, and then when you're in your shadow shroud, you do damage. But the teleporting doesn't do anything because you're not giving it to anybody. So you like you'll have to swap to your Specter instead and do damage that way. Another thing you could do for funsies, if you are going around, if you still want to for some reason use this build when you're not in a group or in a large group setting, you could like pop your Thieves Guild and give it to them. And then I went around and collected all of the summonable minion things, like the Fire Elemental Powder, the Ogre Pet Whistle, the Raven Spirit, the Pocket Jade Armor. I couldn't, the wiki was down, so I couldn't remember how to get the Sun Spear Paragon support thing, but I was going to get that as well. So like you always have at least one friend going around with you to give Rottweiler Venom to. But no, this build is definitely specifically for large group content. I tried it in basically all the metas. It works very well. You kind of just heal people out the wazoo. It's kind of insane how much healing you do. You also deal a decent amount of barrier. Before the nerf to the Shadow Shroud, I could like get a sustained over an entire meta fight 5k healing per second and 5k barrier per second, which is kind of crazy. After the nerf, it's more like 5k and 3k barrier per second, and it's still pretty good. But yeah, so I've also tried it in strikes. It works pretty well in strikes as well. Not as good as in a meta situation because you don't have as many targets for your Rottweiler Venom, so you can't spam. If you have less targets for your Rottweiler Venom, you actually have to think about the internal cooldown. You got to go like 1 second. It's got to be like a tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Because then you only have 5 targets in your subgroup, so it'll do it every 5 seconds. Anyway, every second. What else am I talking about? I forget now. There's so many little things to this build. I could go on for a very long time about little things about this build I could do. But let's just go over the traits real quick because I think that's probably important. So we talked about Specter already. We talked about the consumed shadows. It gives a lot of healing, but not as much as it used to. Rottweiler Venom is very important. Traversing Dusk gives you permanent alacrity when you use your wells on people, and it also heals people. And then, the other great thing about this clicking your teleport off cooldown all the time is you gain Shadow Force every time you teleport for each ally affected as well. So if you're in a big group, if you're affecting 5 allies at least, going bonk, 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 like 4 teleports will get your Shadow Force up to like 100% really quickly. Basically, every time your Shroud is off cooldown, you'll be at full Shadow Shroud because of it. And then, so also here, this is interesting. You give barrier when you apply stealth to yourself and allies. And that's a big barrier. That's 2,400. This build can actually apply stealth. So like here, I'll show you how. Thieves Guild. Let's just pop out my ally stealth. Oh no, I don't have my... Okay, well, hold on. Let's see if No, I have to be in combat. Darn, okay, well, forget the Thieves Guild. But the point is, Enter Shadow Shroud has 2 blast finishers. the middle skill, the 3, the little teleport that gives fear. Oh no, sorry, number 2. Number 2 is a blast finisher that does torment. That's a great skill for damage. And the number 5 is delayed blast finisher. So if for whatever reason, if you're not teleporting around a lot and you have enough initiative to do black powder before going into Shadow Shroud, you could do black powder, Shadow Shroud, do number 2, and that gives area stealth, which gives everybody barrier. And also because of this, because of the shadow arts, you also heal everybody when you give them stealth. So it's a nice alternative to doing the teleport all the time if you don't think you could teleport. So yeah, black powder, then that. And then coming out of Shadow Shroud, you press your 5. It has a 3-second delay before it activates. So you press your Shroud, come out of Shadow Shroud, black powder again, and then it activates the blast finisher. It gives everybody stealth and healing and barrier. And yeah. And so right now I'm running the Shadow's Rejuvenation trait, which says gain initiative whenever you enter or exit stealth. So it kind of pays back some of the black powder cost. The black powder cost is kind of insane. 6 initiative in PvE. I don't really know why it's so high in PvE. It's like, yikes, right? That should be lower in PvE, I think. But anyway, you get back some of the initiative, so it kind of pays for itself a little bit. And then if you want to try to do too much, though, if you want to try to do way too much, you could do Cover of Shadow instead. And with that, going in and out of stealth like twice for every rotation of your Shadow Shroud means you could give probably, a 70%, 80% uptime of protection, because you give 6 seconds of protection to everybody, 6.5 seconds of protection to everybody around you when you give them stealth because they go in and out of it. That with the stability being, 50% uptime of stability. And then you're using the 5th Shadow Shroud thing, which also gives stability to one of your tethered targets. So, it's a lot of stability, it's a lot of protection, a hell of a lot of healing, a decent amount of barrier, very good amount of barrier. It's just a lot. And then I have Deadly Arts as my last one because it actually does a good amount of poison damage, because you got, with these traits, you do extra condition damage, and then when you steal, you do poison. And then when you strike with a dual wield attack, which you never do, you get poison. But the more importantly, whenever you immobilize a foe, you poison them. And Infiltrator Strike, besides healing people, it also immobilizes and gives swiftness. And so every time you use one of the 2 Infiltrator Strikes attacks, you give 2 stacks of poison as well. So that's pretty good as well. I suppose if you wanted to go full into be a little bit less damagey, because this happens once every 2 seconds, let's say, the immobilize. So that's 800 DPS, maybe 1,000 DPS if you're lucky. So if you want to do a little bit less damage, and then instead, but the other problem is the poison it inflicts is the duration and damage is increased. So yeah, that really helps the spider venom as well. So you will be doing a lot less damage if you don't take Deadly Arts, but you could switch it, I guess, to Trickery to give more boons and give more, and be able to do the teleporting more often. But no, I like sticking with Deadly Arts because of the damage. Because yeah, 10k DPS in large fights with a lot of healing and a lot of barrier is pretty strong, and it's a lot of fun to use. Permanent Alacrity as well. I forgot I definitely mentioned that a couple of times. There's so much more to talk about with this build. I don't know how much more I should put into this video. It seems like a weird... You could ask me questions. I don't know, man. There's a stealth thing with the bursts. There's I could talk about a rotation, but I don't know. I'm not probably the right person to talk about the rotation because it's just so weird to begin with, I basically, I put down my wells, give everybody all the alacrity. Also, it heals and gives them barrier and stuff like that. It also pop the spider venom. You got to watch out about the Well of Gloom because it'll interrupt your other wells when you're trying to cast them. So Well of Sorrow seems to have a longer cast time than some of the other wells, so it seems to get interrupted whenever I try to cast it, then the Well of Gloom. So watch out about that. When your well fields are down, doing this black powder burst combo won't work because you're already in a dark field. So the black powder has to go down before these guys if you want to do that stealth thing. But really, you drop your wells, you teleport around, heal everybody up, put Rottweiler venom on everybody, do a lot of damage. When Enter Shadow Shroud is ready, you pop into it. You do all the you do like number 2 for damage. You do number 4 for damage. If you want some barrier because they're hitting you or something, you can do number 3. Go number 2 again, and then as soon as you have 5 stacks of that that thing because of this thing. So once you get 5 stacks of this, pop out a Shadow Shroud, heal everybody up, or put a lot of barrier on people, and then start popping around again, start teleporting again, or do your black powder combo thing. And then when your wells are off cooldown, do those again. It's really simple. Really simple. The hardest thing about this build is positioning because of the teleporting. If you have auto targeting on, it's going to be weird trying to remember where you are. Also, what's weird is if you like teleport into somebody, like if you, let's say I'm trying to teleport, that's a bad guy, teleport into him. Then when you use this teleport ability again, you're very far away. So you always want to try to start your teleports, these teleports, when you're close up where everybody is and where the bad guy is. So when you want to get into a target, definitely use your wells instead of this. Yeah. Another thing is, if you're auto-targeted, then you're always going to go to an enemy and come back. But if you're not auto-targeted, like I'm not right now, this first thing is not teleporting you because you're not targeted to anybody. But if you move off of it, the second one is a shadow step. So that will heal people. So this first one, for some reason, activates this heal and not this heal. Or maybe it's the other way around, I forget. And then the second one will activate both of them. So even if you don't have a target, you can still heal people at if you're still in combat, you can still heal people at approximately, I guess, 75% of the capacity you were doing before, which is good, right? Which is very good. So yeah, so don't worry about that. I don't know. There's gonna be. I'm gonna put a bunch of while doing all this. I'm gonna put a bunch of videos of me in big groups of stuff. It works in strikes, like I said. I haven't taken it into raids yet because I don't want to subject people to it, because I don't think I'm good enough with it yet, or I don't know if it's like versatile enough to bring into a lot of situations yet. You know, you have to be really good at positioning and knowing how to use this, I think, if you want to make it work in complicated fights. Because until you're able to do that, I don't think it can. But I think it has potential. I think this build has potential to do good things based on the numbers it generates. But yeah, that's all for now. I hope you like this. Oh yeah, also if you want like not this weird build, and so this is like you can't use this build when you're not in a group. But here's a really quick, easy way to play a build, Specter build that you don't need a group for, and that's put Chronomancer runes on your Celestial armor. Just put Chronomancer runes on your Celestial armor. Go full wells. Use the Alacrity trait. Go Trickery this time for all the boons you could get. And then Deadly Arts still, because Deadly Arts is good. And then basically just have all the boons in the game. Because you get Alacrity and Quickness. You put a Celerity Sigil on one of your weapons right here. I got a Celerity Sigil. So you have 100% uptime of Quickness, 100% uptime of Alacrity. I think you get, how much is it? You get, this gives you about, on average, 9 might. And then this gives you, with the cooldown reduction, on average 7 might. So yeah, you get some might from it as well. You get like 15 to 20 might. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Permanent fury, permanent everything. It's great. And then you do your damage just by spamming Twilight combo. Okay, I'm done. I've rambled. This was not a structured build video. I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing, I think. And if I don't do editing, you're gonna have to just deal with it. Sorry about that. But that's it. Goodbye. I love you. Enjoy.